You're still watching TVC Breakfast. We now head to the Center of Unity where Eshomomo Imodu and Tijesu Adeoye are standing by in our Abuja studio for the FCT brief. Inakwana, good morning. Over to you.
Good morning to you. It's a happy Wednesday morning here in the nation's capital city, and we're ready to unpack all that we have for you today on the table. Good morning, Lagos and the whole of Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria, and it's Wednesday, and just about 2 days' time, we should be gliding towards the weekend where you can have sufficient rest for your mind and
You're
brains.
all about rest all the time.
Exactly, we need the rest so that we'll be that stressed out.
All right.
Now let's give you what we have now. Welcome to FCT Brief. Now it is on record that the local government system was designed to bring governance closer to the people, ensuring that rural communities benefit directly from developmental initiatives. However, over the years, the autonomy of local government has been curtailed, with state governments exerting control over finances and decision-making processes. In recent weeks, advocacy groups, lawmakers, and civil society organizations have renewed calls for the full implementation of the local government autonomy. They argue that granting councils financial and administrative independence will improve service delivery in key areas such as healthcare delivery, education, and rural infrastructure. Supporters of the move also emphasize that local autonomy will promote accountability, curb corruption, and reduce over-dependence on federal and state allocations.
On the other hand, critics warn that without proper checks and balances, autonomous councils may become breeding grounds for mismanagement. They insist that strong institutions must first be built to ensure transparency at the grassroots levels. The federal government has reiterated its commitment to strengthening democratic institutions, while the National Assembly continues to deliberate on constitutional amendments that will guarantee full local government autonomy. As Nigeria pushes for reforms, the implementation of local government autonomy remains a decisive step in shaping governance, ensuring equity, and driving sustainable development at the grassroots. The big question is will political will align with the people's demand? Evarade Abednego is a technical advisor to the governor of Bayelsa State on communications and strategy, and he's live here with us in the studio. Also here with us in the studio is Elder John Shaibu. He is the project lead, Local Government Accountability Project. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Nice to have you here.
You're welcome.
Nice to have us.
Well, let's jump straight into what we have today. Who do I begin with? Let's begin with you, Mr. Shaibu. Now, as a noble idea of local government autonomy is, especially with its potential to accelerate grassroots development, why has full implementation remained such a stubborn challenge in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. That is why we're an advocacy group, because we have seen so much lacuna and so much lack of performance. And that for us is not what we expect to happen with the local government system. Now, the implementation of this, it transcends from the federal, states, and local government, from the federal, really. Because when you look at why are we not having full implementation, that people now have to go to court for financial autonomy, which is not supposed to be so. It has been enshrined in the Constitution, in 1999 Constitution as amended.
Exactly.
Right? That local governments should have their autonomy. Now, what do we have? We're having lip services paid to such the implementation of the program. Because local governments is a grassroots developmental level of a nation. And if you have the local government working functional, if they are functioning properly, what you have development across board, not just within the center that you have development. Because rural-urban migration stems from the fact that local governments are not being fully functional as it's supposed to be. So that for us is a sign that something is missing and people are suffering.
All right, Mr. Evarade. Most Supreme Court's ruling on local government autonomy have been obeyed, except for that financial independence. Now, if the courts have ruled and yet governors still retain control, what does that say about the enforceability of our judiciary on matters of financial federalism?
I think it's important to mention that when we talk about the judgment of the courts, the intentment of that judgment should be for the realization of law. Law can only be realized when proper things are done, not when you jumpstart the process and you get to the point of doling out a judgment from the courts. The fundamental issue hasn't been dealt with as far as local governments are concerned in this country. And the main issue is that of how our local government leaders are brought to fore. How do they emerge? In as much as what happens in virtually all local governments in this country are like the decision of who becomes a governor decides who becomes a local government chairman. It's also very worrisome, even though I'm from the government angle. Sometimes we look at issues from a very objective view. Because when you look at it and you say, wait, is there any state in this country where elections are conducted and other political parties also a major chairman of local government is hardly seen or heard of? The reason is because there is a gross failure in the institution that aroused the birth of leadership emergence in Nigeria. And that is why, for me as a person, and largely so, it should be the decision of all conscious Nigerians to say, look, let us look at the processes leading to the emergence. In as much as that has not been tinkered with, and you just go to say, let us have local government autonomy, financial independence, how do you demonstrate that? The execution of that judgment
I think we can't question how to implement the judgment of the Supreme Court, because we're told once the Supreme Court makes a pronouncement, it is the law. Now, the law, as far as Nigeria is concerned, in the Supreme Court, is that there should be a single account controlled by the local government, and allocations should be paid directly. So that's not like joint account. In Bayelsa states, have you complied with that directive of the Supreme Court?
I can't like a question more than this, because Bayelsa state is quite a unique state when we talk about local government administration and reforms in this country. But as people are talking about joint accounts, for us as a state, we are rather calling for a national dialogue on local government creation, local government administrative reforms, and of course funding, which is a crucial imperative.
You've not answered that question.
Now I'm coming to that.
Answer it first, then you're going to what you have to say.
So what I'm saying, in Bayelsa state, there is true local government independence, even before the Supreme Court rolled out their decision. The reason being that, one, we have just 8 local governments in Bayelsa state. Funny enough, what goes to local government directly in Bayelsa state is not even enough to pay the salaries of local government. So when we talk about local government in Bayelsa, we are talking about an appendage of the state government, because even the salaries of local governments in Bayelsa state are paid by the state government, because what comes from the national coffers directly to local government. Remember this, we are operating a very transparent system in Bayelsa state where anything we say now should be fast checked.
Okay, I'll come back to you on that. Let me quickly pick you on this. Supreme Court judgment is the law. How do you, from what you've seen so far, is there a state in Nigeria where locations, where the local government have their own accounts?
You see, the interesting thing here is that, we need to look at it from the angle of what is happening from the CBN, payment from the federal government across the tiers. Now, if a local government is meant to bring a 2-year audited account, financial audited account, where had they get it before they can open accounts? Now, the state government, I am happy that the Bayelsa representative is here, the Bayelsa state representative. What I want to ask is this, is as if they are giving a gift to local governments. It's not a gift. It's supposed to be their statutory, allocation, and it's constitutional. So what we're advocating for as an advocacy group is that, look, let this thing go directly to the local government so that they can function well. Because if the local government are functioning well, that means you, in my village, my aged, parents, my cousins, my family, everybody will feel the impact of government. Now, that is why we are telling them that, look, send this money directly to local governments. And governors are not doing it. And when they are doing it, they do it as if it's a great gift. It's not a great gift, right? So we want a direct allocation to the states, no joint accounts. Why will you have a joint account when you have an autonomy? What the state government should do is to provide a framework that they will function together, because they interrelate. For instance, when FCT, the minister resides here, we have AMAC. So how do you know what is functioning in? In Yenagoa, the governor resides in Yenagoa. So, and it's a local government. So how do you now get the local government to function when you have a governor who is like the landlord of the state?
I like that point that you raised, but we'll still touch on that. But that'll be right after the short break. Don't go anywhere. Sip some coffee. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. We'll continue our conversation on the push for full implementation of financial autonomy at the local government level. Now, Mr. Schreiber, you heard when Mr. Evarade said the problem might be how these local government council chairmen are probably selected. Now, do you think this is a pattern that has strayed for so long just because, you know, the governors might want to maintain control of the grassroots, so they control how these local government chairmen are selected, or will I say elected, so that, you know, they maintain control over them?
Well, for me, I feel it's all politics, right? Because if the governors control the chairman, what happens is this: they will have access to funds, right, to run the affairs of the state. But to whose benefit? Is it to the people? Now, that is why people have been calling to question the governor's role when it comes to full autonomy of the local governments. Because, like, the governor determines virtually who becomes the local government chairman and the councillor. So if you don't play to the tune, what happens? You don't get the required, support from them. So it shouldn't be that way. We should see a situation where local government chairmen are part of the system that makes for a functional state. And if you have it that way, what we're going to have is development across board. The governors should give the local government chairman the full rights to do what is necessary. Because if you have a governor that really cares about the people, he will not mind what the local government chairman is doing. Rather, he will encourage local government chairman to perform better. So that the governor, at the end of the day, is saying, okay, our government, our state, our people are enjoying the benefits of governance. Okay. Because without the people, what is government?
Okay. Let's say, technical advisor, let me ask you this. Earlier you talked about your state, that you've gone beyond even the local government autonomy. You're doing a lot of reforms. But if there is a law and we're not following the law, it means we're working against the law. And whatever you do that is outside the law becomes like an aberration. Now, if there is a Supreme Court judgment and you say, okay, it's about performance, the government is interested in what happens, how they develop, why is it difficult for you to obey that simple instruction by the Supreme Court? Can't your state, for instance, become the first state, maybe in Nigeria, where the governor will ensure that local government have their own accounts? Then from there, we can move to other things. So it's like you're going through the other way instead of following the directive of the Supreme Court. So how can we correct that narrative? Do first what the Supreme Court says, then you can begin to, every other thing can be added.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that the effective execution of that decision of the Supreme Court is beyond just the pronouncement of the courts. The reason being that virtually up front of the country, there are political considerations on what needs to be done by Governor A, B, C, and D. It is not just about state A or state B, whether Bayelsa, Imo, or Jigawa state. The problem is there are issues that are fundamental, which most of the governors and the people of their states are quite interested in and not quite, fraternizing with the idea of local government autonomy. So for example,
politics supersedes the Constitution. No,
you see, look,
because from your explanation, that's what I'm
coming. You see, it did start in the first time I talked here and said that the whole essence of law will not be realized except there are certain things that people show ownership and responsibility. The decision of the Supreme Court has to be owned by the people. That hasn't been done. But let me not be swayed away from the point I want to make. In Bayelsa State, like I said, the people are particular about certain things. We are from Bayelsa State, a state that generates about 40% or thereabouts of the national coffers. And it is from Bayelsa State that most states have empowered. For example, not mentioning states, some states do have more than 40 local governments. Bayelsa State has 8. And what is used to fund those local governments is from Bayelsa State. You see,
So
for us,
that is the reason why
for
you
us,
disobey the Supreme Court.
What I'm saying is, for us as a people, as Jaws, as Bayelsans, our concern is, look, the decision of the Supreme Court is a fantastic idea. But please, we've been on this cry for too long. Can we have a national dialogue so that we understand the modus why and how states should be created? When should trade be stated? How many states need to be created? What are the considerations and concessions that needs to be made?
You don't trust, the capacity of this local government chairman that has been selected? Because if you say that there's a structure in place and you say that the state government should maintain status quo, that means you're saying that you yourself don't trust the process of the local government. So are you calling for its scrap?
Except you're misconstruing my take. My take is very clear.
Okay, make me understand.
I am saying, one, in Bayelsa State, there is a zero interference of the state government into what goes to local governments. The fundamental problem that exists in the country today is that there are political, conflicts here and there, and so the central bank has not been able to pay monies directly to local government. Is it the fault of the state governor? No. So it is, of course.
So you're saying that the local governments can implement every other thing except the financial authority?
I am going beyond that. I am saying in Bayelsa State, in the midst of we having just 8 local governments, these councils, even with the money that comes to them, they cannot pay salaries. So the problem is not about financial autonomy. It's about the process. It's about our argument, our call for a national dialogue. Why do we need a national dialogue? We're saying, look, we can't be Bayelsa State that brings virtually 40-45% of the funds that are used to run the 774 local government in the country. Okay. Can't we really look at it from a very free-minded person to say, look, let us move forward to have that?
Do you think that this issue requires a national dialogue before it is resolved, or is just a matter of accountability?
Accountability. What national dialogue again? We have local governments. Since 1999, the Constitutional Amendment as amended, we have local governments have been given what they're supposed to do. Why did we establish local governments? It's to give grassroots governance. So if we're talking about national dialogue, we're going back to what again? What we need to do, what we have now, let the local governments have their resources. Let there be development. Let there be health centers. Let schools be developed. It breaks our heart as a group, as leadership and accountability, to see a situation where on TV you see students under the tree. Because why? Local governments are not functioning properly. Where are the resources? We want those resources deployed to those local governments, the council, the wards. That is why we were looking at advocating for a citizen advocacy, where the citizen will report, have a mechanism to report. And that is why we're also partnering with NUJ, and we're also going to partner with other organizations that will give a voice to what we're doing. Okay. So that people can feel governance. That is what we're all about.
Now, let me still talk to you about this issue of the Supreme Court, because, according to him, there are certain things that are not proper. Is it proper for us to talk about selective obedience to court judgments? If the Supreme Court has given a ruling, can we decide to what extent we implement that directive of the Supreme Court?
No, there shouldn't be to an extent. It should be holistic. A directive has been given, so it's a bit our imagination in this country that when
who do we hold responsible for the continuous release of those allocations?
Who is to be held responsible?
Yes, somebody is releasing, and if it's a Supreme Court ruling,
let's hold CBN. Let's hold CBN, because from what we understand, the CBN will ask local governments to bring a 2-year financial audit of the local government. The man that is not controlling the funds, how does it bring audit of what is not controlling? So I think that arrangement is even warped. So having that joint account, they should allow the states, the local governments, since it's a Supreme Court, let's go back to the drawing board, address this state point blank and say, look, okay, start, have your local government's your account in place. So we'll credit your account, then we'll hold you accountable.
Going forward,
not wait for some kind of legal work, some kind of bureaucracy that will, that is stunting the growth of local governments. Listen, it pains us here that in the city we look so good. When you go to your village, you don't want to stay in your village because you want to jet out of that place because you don't have anything functioning. Aside from those local governments that are domiciled in the capital.
All right. And Mr. Evarade, you highlighted mismanagement and corruption at the local government level remaining rampant, and that is why, the state governments are reluctant to implement the full financial autonomy for them. Now, we've seen anti-graft agency go after federal and state governments if they find them wanting. Why has this level of scrutiny not also been implemented on the local government level if you claim that there's mismanagement and corruption lying there?
I guess I didn't even mention about mismanagement of funds in local governments. I'm largely trying to be very centric in matters of discussing this subject as a Bayelsa and as an Ijaw. And I'm saying that, look, the position of our state and the people of Bayelsa state isn't about whether local government funds are actually mismanaged. That isn't the subject of discourse as far as we are concerned. What we are concerned is you can't be funding 44 local governments in the states, and almost everything that is used to fund them is from my state, and we have just 8. And even the 8, the indices by which they allot monies to local government, in Bayelsa state, our local governments are about the least funded in terms of giving allocations. And so we're saying, look, for us to have this one country in the spirit of brotherhood, can we have a roundtable to discuss why and how local government should be created? For example, now, we are talking about National Assembly also looking inwards, can we create more states? I read it on the papers, and I realized that some states are asking as much as 30, some 25. And the question is there a true federalism in this country? Look, as Ijaws, as Bayelsans, the subject of discourse as far as we're concerned is not necessarily local government autonomy. It's a fantastic idea, but what about the fundamentals that are supposed to guide us and bring us together as a country? In Bayelsa state, and let us say for the right reasons, local government funds are never tampered with. And I'm emphasizing, local governments in Bayelsa state can't pay salaries. And let me say it for the right reasons too. In Bayelsa state, whereas states are talking about reforming local governments, ours, we have gone beyond reforms. And that's why we can come on national television and beat our chests to say, is there a single person within the Local Government Service Commission in Bayelsa state that hasn't been paid pension, gratuities, and death benefits? The reason we are top-notch, number 1 in the country, is because we understand that local government ordinarily should be a vehicle of development in rural communities. And because the local government are shortchanged in terms of allocations, we have come to show the big brother's role to say, local government chairman, yes, what are your problems from Southern Nigeria, Nebe, Brass, all of them?
Quite
they come and they have a problem. Let me say, please.
Sorry, we need to take a quick commercial break. As much as I'm enjoying what you're saying, but we need to go on a quick break. We'll still come back to that. Let's take this quick break. We'll be back.